Welcome to Reels on the Rocks, the show where your hosts Whiskey and Sweet Tea discuss film from the unpretentious perspective. March Madness is in the air and we're feeling it here with The Replacements. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and as always, please be advised that spoilers are ahead. Whiskey, do you have any idea how much insurance on a Ferrari costs?
3.
What? What is 3? I don't even... Okay.
Welcome back, everybody, to some March movie madness.
Back with our favorite picks from the sports comedy genre and apparently picking the worst lines from movies. So we're back. Last episode we did discuss Dodgeball, and the Oscars, and because of that, Whiskey has to pay up, and so his punishment was to watch the obviously slated to be preserved in the American Film Registry, Christmas in the Spotlight. And I will say I did get panic texts from him. Just kidding. In the middle of it. No, but go on. So
for anyone who didn't listen to our drinking game episode from from last year, this movie was, despite being about Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce's relationship. Yeah, I don't know why I was blanking on that for half a second. So, despite being about their relationship, this movie was so bad that T didn't even like it. So, yeah, going into that. So, what I was tasked with doing, I had to watch it, but I also had to write down any Taylor Swift reference that I came across just to make sure I'm paying attention, which was fun. It kept it interesting. As far as like my thoughts on the movie, I'll kind of pepper those in with what I noticed. One thing I like about Lifetime movies now is that they are self-aware.
Yeah.
For probably kind of as they were getting popular, they were just stupid and people thought they were lovably stupid. But now that they know that they have like a brand to live up to, they're like stupid on purpose. And one series, I think it's a Lifetime movie. You watch Lifetime, so like you probably will know. There's like this series with this actress who's like the star in all of them. She's like a detective or something, and it's The Wrong Something. So it's like The Wrong Babysitter or The Wrong.
I think I remember that.
That looks hilarious. I think, and again, I might be wrong. I don't know if those are Lifetime movies, but that is like my flavor of what I would enjoy from like a so stupid it knows it's stupid kind of thing. This was a Christmas movie and a Taylor Swift homage. That was definitely just trying to capitalize on this year-old phenomenon by the time,
right?
The movie
Everyone
came
was like
out.
over it by then.
And so I've got my notes here, so let me see. So so obviously the character is just, it's her. Like, it's honestly kind of funny that they didn't just like make it about Taylor. I guess you have to get like rights or something. And also it's so recent that it would be a little ridiculous for them to do that. But they made up some names for her and the guy. I thought of writing them down, but who cares? It's so like just every exact thing about her life is a Taylor Swift reference, because I know enough about her that she did win a songwriting competition when she was a kid, and that she, she's involved in philanthropy, and she's won all of these Grammys, and she, started doing being a pop star before she was like an adult. So like they rattled off just like a million facts about, oh, you're having trouble finding a boyfriend, but you're a billionaire, and you're like just all these things, and I was like, okay, it's basically cut and paste from Taylor's actual life. Like, it's almost it's almost funny that they have to change the names, because when it's exactly the same character, it's like, couldn't she sue you anyway? She writes songs about her ex-boyfriends. That's like a thing that people always say about Taylor Swift. Okay. I got this was a clever one. So there's like a bit where the football guy is taking a picture. So he goes to what is essentially the Eras tour with his little niece. And he is actually a super fan of, like he listens to this Taylor Swift knockoffs like music with his niece, and he's got like the t-shirts and stuff, and so he obviously takes his niece to go see the show. So when they are backstage, there's kind of an awkward, funny, that was sort of funny how because obviously they also have to make up a football, he can't be like a fictional character on the Kansas City Chiefs. No, they have to make up a fake football team. So there was like a funny kind of interface where it's like, well, how'd you get back here? Oh, I'm a bomber.
That sounds so bad. Yeah,
the name of the team.
I remember that.
It's so bad, and it's so... I mean, honestly, they probably wrote the joke first, and then they were like, oh my god, the football team could be the Bombers. And it'd be funny if they wrote a worse joke, like, oh, I'm a terrorist. That's a little much. But anyway, so there is a deep cut reference that I definitely got. I feel like maybe some younger Taylor Swift fans wouldn't get this. So he's taking a photo with... I'm just going to call her Taylor Swift. I don't remember what her name is.
And this is also Taylor reference, her name is Bowen. Her fans are the Arrows, because Bowen Arrow and track 5 on Lover is the Archer. So that was all a reference to that.
See, and these are the references I'm not going to get, because I'm not that much... Like, I enjoy her music, but I don't know what track 5 on Lover is. And even if I did, I probably wouldn't even think that they were thinking that much. So the reference I did get is, so the niece takes the photo with her, and then it's the football guy's turn, and he asks her, hey, can I put my arm around you? And she's like, oh, so thank you for asking. That is a reference to a previous lawsuit that Taylor Swift won, where a DJ supposedly groped her, and frankly... she won, and I'm inclined to kind of believe it. Ruined the guy's career, and I'm like, okay, that's a reference to when that happened.
Yep.
Oh, another reference I got, so at one point she says, like, I was never really a cheerleader, I was more of a bleacher girl. Literally...
they were so shameless.
She has pom-poms, I wear sneakers, she's cheer captain, and I'm on the bleachers. So I know that. Okay, kind of a reference. Again, it's like, it's obvious, so I don't even know if you could consider this a reference, but their first date, he has to wear a disguise, and he's like taking an unmarked car, and it's really creepy. But then they end up like going to a private jet that's inside of a hangar. I guess that's kind of a reference too, because she's got in trouble with her private jet. But she's like, oh, this is what it takes to be private. So that I'm really, really squeezing for references, but technically, that is kind of a reference to how her life is, because she famously wears disguises and like smuggles herself into venues, like hidden in things, because her fans are so completely insane that they will like mob her if they see her anywhere. I wrote down, so she's been performing since she was 13, won a song competition. That was something. So this is a question I had for you. So she has an ex-boyfriend villain character in the movie that is a jerk. But I was like, is this based on Jake Gyllenhaal? Because I know that she has dated a lot of actors, and they even kind of make a thing about that in the movie. Like, oh, you always dated like artists, but now you're dating a football star, and it shouldn't work, but it totally does. But this evil character, for some reason, I know that they like villainized Jake Gyllenhaal when they broke up. I don't know if he did anything or whatever, but like I know that he is like her most hated ex. And this guy was like, an actor. He was having like a documentary made about his life and stuff. And I was just asking you, like, is that supposed to be like a reference to one of her exes that I don't know about or something?
When I saw that was my takeaway, and I was like, oh yeah, yep, that's probably what this is a reference to. No, I think you're on the money with
Okay.
that. Oh, I also forgot to mention her fans also, since they're called Arrowheads, it's also a reference to Arrowhead Stadium.
I mean, whoever wrote this probably had a lot of fun making stupid like puns and references and stuff. I'm proud of myself getting this reference. So there's like a bit between these, like, I wouldn't call them news anchors. They're almost like TMZ reporters that keep commenting on our life, but there's like a thing where one of them says like the alchemy between these two, and I'm like, song reference.
Yeah, the song.
There's alchemy, exactly. Okay, so another question for you, and I wrote this down as it might possibly be a reference, but I'm not sure. So there's like this whole theme of like puzzles and puzzle pieces throughout the movie, and you know, there's like a line I decided to write down where it's like, sometimes the pieces don't quite fit. I think that was like from when they were like breaking up, but the puzzle thing was so constant. Like, it's one of their dates they go on, but like the imagery of the puzzles and the pieces, and he gives her the missing puzzle piece for like her necklace, and I was like, is this a Taylor reference? Because I don't know about any like puzzle songs or anything with her, but this seems so like specific that, is this like a Taylor Swift reference?
I remember thinking this has to be something, but I couldn't remember. I didn't remember. I couldn't place it with anything. The only thing I think of is like the fact that she's just mentioned in songs, you know, like how specifically in the song, what is it called? I Bet You Think About Me, where he's, you know, they talks about Jake Gyllenhaal has his mansion and everything, and she had kind of more of a just regular family life, and that's the only thing I can think of, but I'm not sure.
Okay, so same vibe as me. You think it might be a reference to something, but you're not sure. Maybe it isn't. If you couldn't think of something, maybe it was just actually a clever thing that someone wrote for the movie. Because if that was in a regular rom-com, I actually kind of liked it a lot. It was cute. It was one of the most, or the least obnoxious things in the movie. And then the last thing I was able to get as a reference was his niece giving him a friendship bracelet when he was in the sad part of the movie where they're broken up and all of that. It's like, anyone who doesn't know, friendship bracelets are a big thing at Taylor shows. Like, Swifties give bracelets out to everybody, and you should be bringing a whole bunch with you just so you can make connections with people and swap that out. So I got that reference. So I'm sure I am missing just a metric ton of things that I didn't pick up on. But what are some big references that I
Lucky
didn't
for
know?
you, Lauren Huff of Entertainment Weekly pulled together all of the Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce Easter eggs in Lifetime movie Christmas in the Spotlight. So I already told you about
that poor woman.
I know. So if you notice, Drew's Juju number is 13.
Oh, I didn't notice that. Shoot, I could have actually, because we talked about this. Dang it, I would have gotten that one. Okay, yeah, no, 13 is her lucky number, which also makes sense now that I know that she won a song competition when she's been performing since she was 13.
That's with the reference to 13.
So there you go. Yeah, so shoot, I didn't notice that with his jersey. I feel like I should have. I could have been better.
You're fine. Trust me, there's some in here that you're not going to get. Actually, there's a couple I'm surprised you did.
Well, the Arrowhead thing is the Arrowhead thing is like, of course I wouldn't know that. Again, even if I listened to all of Lover, I don't think I would have picked up on the fact. Oh,
well, see, I thought you would have made the connection with Arrowhead Stadium, where the Kansas Chiefs play.
See, that's the thing, though. I'm not really, like, a football guy. I'm a big movie nerd. Like, fun fact for anyone in the audience, I don't think I've shared this on the podcast. I actually did play offensive left tackle in my freshman year of high school, and I was first string. I didn't really like it very much, so I quit after one season. But yeah, I'm not like a mega sports fan, especially if it's like I'm not in a Chiefs household. Frankly, for my childhood growing up, they were a sucky team, so I had no reason to. Genuinely, like, it's kind of cool that they're good now. It's sort of like how, kids growing up now will find it crazy that the New England Patriots were like unstoppable when I was a kid. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of the cool things about football is that the tides do shift over the years. So, 10 years from now, who knows what team is going to be like. In fact, this last season, the Lions and the Buffalo Bills were historically sucky teams, but they've gotten really good over the years. So like it's an interesting. So I don't know that the Chiefs stadium is called Arrowhead because I've never been a Chiefs fan and I don't know the names of all the different stadiums.
Which frankly I didn't until Taylor. But actually, since you brought it up, what household are you? If you're not, I mean, you're
Steelers.
You're Steelers.
Steelers. Okay. I personally did not watch them until recently because Roethlisberger, their former quarterback, when I was growing up. So, like, I want to say it was around the time I was in high school. There was an allegation against him that was never really proven wrong, and it sounded quite heinous, so I intentionally did not want to back them up for a while. But they got a new quarterback now, and they're not as good as they used to be, so they're fun to root for again. So, but Steelers household.
I'm a Bears household.
Yeah, no, you mentioned that, which was interesting because T is from Texas. So like when I heard that the Bears are great though, I like the Bears.
Well, they suck, but we love them anyway.
So yeah, like I'm from a Steelers household, but for the teams I like, it's all just stupid arbitrary stuff. Like I like the jerseys or the mascot or something. Yes. Like that's. Like for instance, I mentioned the Buffalo Bills are really good. I do not like them. I don't know why. I just don't like them. And opposingly, I like the Lions. I like that they're an old team. They're from a working class city. They've never even been to a Super Bowl. Like, and they're my favorite color, blue. So like stupid things like that are why I will like a team. So yeah, no, I didn't get the Arrowhead Stadium thing. So continue. What else did I miss?
The family dynamic of Drew's family is set up to very much be like the Kelseys, with also the brother who also plays football and his wife. Supposed to be very Kelsey, Jason, and Travis. Okay, the bow and arrow pose that Drew does in the field is a reference to Bowen. Is also something that Travis Kelce does. On the field, and Taylor has added to her choreography because of that. The friendship bracelets you got, the part that you left out though is he's like, what do all these letters mean? And she's like, oh, it's this specific lyric. Like, I'm not kidding you. The amount of times people in Taylor fan groups are like, hey everyone, I got this bracelet, what does this acronym mean? And it looks like a whole bunch of random letters, and people will be like, oh, it's, and then they'll put, oh, it means this specific song lyric. So that was a funny thing to do that. They call it the conversation around the world. I'm actually surprised you didn't get this one. The way that the actor person tries to bring her down in the movie is by editing and publishing a conversation that was had, just like Kanye and Kim did to Taylor.
That's
and then
right.
It later came out that they edited it.
I forgot about that because that was so long ago. And to be fair, Kanye's had quite a bit more going on recently. No, shoot. Yeah, that is true. I forgot about that.
And, okay. So then now the obvious ones. Which is basically they just dropped a whole bunch of song lyrics in here.
See, that's the thing I'm disappointed in myself, because I got Alchemy the song reference, and I did get the song lyric, like the pom-pom sneakers, bleachers, yada yada. But yeah, what song lyrics?
Okay, so first one from the song "Ready for It," when her manager is like, you should give him a shot. She says, "Let the games begin." That's like one of the big lines from "Ready for It."
Dang it. I like that song.
You Belong
too.
With Me, you got that one.
Okay.
This one I didn't catch, but this makes sense. When she's telling him her backstory and her date, she describes herself as a real tough kid, which is a lyric from I Can Do It With a Broken Heart. I'm skipping up.
I probably haven't heard that song, to be honest.
You got the Alchemy. When sports announcers are making nasty comments about how Bowen can't keep a man, she says, why they gotta be so mean. That's a reference to mean. Let me see how I'm scrolling through this, because there's some of these that I didn't catch, so I'm not gonna throw those in there because I'm gonna pretend like I did. okay, you need to calm down and all too well. Oh, there's actually I know there's a couple in here that they didn't put in here. When Mara is telling Bowen, she's giving her a pep talk about the relationship. She tells her you need to calm down. The song, you need to calm down. And then, all too well, that life is not guaranteed, reference to all too well. And that and then the one that I remember the most that they did not put in here was specifically when I forget. I think when Bowen calls for the first or second time, his niece picks up the phone and she's like, "Oh, he can't come to the phone because he's dead."
I did.
That was that was for, oh God, now I can't even think of the name of that song. Yeah,
that was like from the Reputation era, right?
Now it's gonna bug me. That's one of the big ones. That was the first single. But anyway, so this was more of this was kind of just an Easter egg exercise for you, because I do this I feel like you were stressing a little bit. I do this for fun and freak myself out.
No, it's as I said, I think it was good, because otherwise I probably would have just zoned out for a lot of this movie. So giving me a challenge was kind of good. I also, so you mentioned there were some song lyrics. I will say I was disappointed that they never referenced my favorite song. And they could have definitely said this at some point in the movie. I knew you were trouble when you walked in. Could have said that at some point, during the breakup things. I don't know. But I'll mention my thoughts on the movie. It's inoffensive. I don't think this is awful. If I were going to give it a rating, it'd probably be 1.5 shots of whiskey. I think my biggest issue with a film like this, so Lifetime has reached this point in its lifespan where now it knows that the movies it makes are stupid, and it's trying to kind of buy into that. You need to walk a fine line, because this movie overdid it at pretty much the whole thing. It kind of reminds me, on TikTok there'll be teenagers doing try not to cringe challenges, where they line up and they're acting cringy on purpose to try and make the others laugh and stuff. And these challenges often get put on cringe compilations, because it's just because it's cringy, you're still doing it. So that's kind of my thing with this movie, is it's you're being stupid, but it's not enough to just do it anyway. I feel there's a cleverness to it. I mentioned that series that Lifetime has, The Wrong Insert Thing. That's funny. That's an actual joke. And the fact that every one of those movies, there's a line where that actress says, "Looks like you hired the wrong electrician." That's funny. So I think that is this film's biggest problem. I do think whoever wrote it had a lot of fun coming up with references and puns and song lyrics and stuff. Also, I really liked the guy who was a standout for me was the Travis Kelce character. That actor hammed it up, and he kind of reached this. He passed the cringe and got kind of cute. He was so obsessed with her. It was kind of, I don't know, something about his performance I enjoyed watching. And then as far as the story goes, there was a lot of manufactured drama, at least with the recorded line that was a reference to something that actually happened. The thing that I thought was really stupid was there's a bit where he's potentially going to change teams, to be closer to the Taylor character, Bowen, whatever, Bowen, and it's he wouldn't care. The idea that you even are playing on the same team is astronomical in the NFL. Don't be ridiculous. The idea that he was "Oh, you're gonna trade teams and abandon me," it's bro, the real Kelce's don't even play on the same team. I thought that was stupid. About they had that side but that was the biggest. It's so because it lasts it's basically oh shoot, we need something to make the brothers mad at each other. We need because it's he needs to lose his whole support system somehow. There's no drama in this movie. The whole thing, as I said, it's all manufactured. No one in their right mind would be upset that you're dating a pop star, and no one would also be equally upset. like at the very beginning it's about, oh, you're hiding me from everybody, which is like understandable, but also she has to hide from her own fans. So like I don't know, it seemed kind of unreasonable that he'd be that upset with her at the beginning, but of course they needed something. And that's just kind of the whole movie in a nutshell. It's like it's recounting their relationship up until this point, which hasn't even been a year. Well, now it's been a year, but by the time this movie was being written, it hadn't been. So it's just the screenwriter inventing very petty things for the characters to be mad at each other for. And I don't think it was enough to carry the movie.
But, you know, here, really quickly, because you brought him up. So his name is Leif Walschlager. He, it says he did attend trials and completed preseason with the Arizona Cardinals of the NFL as an undrafted.
Oh wow! So he's like an actual
he was undrafted. He was an undrafted defensive end. Following that, he played a season with the Jacksonville Sharks of Arena Football League. But it says down here, and because I kept thinking this when I was saying this, so he was actually in a. I kind of wanted to watch this, but I also don't want to watch this series because I feel like it's exploitative. I think it was our favorite person in the world who did this. Ryan Murphy. He produced American Sports Story, Aaron Hernandez. And he portrayed Gronkowski in that series, which I actually was like, yeah, he looks kind of Gronkowski-ish. Like, a little bit. And then it was just funny because he's also been his body double in commercials.
He's a good actor, I gotta say. For this movie, he was the standout for me. I enjoyed his performance. He hammed it up appropriately. Because, like, he was embracing the cringe. Like, now that I know he's actually been in, like, serious things, I'm sure he can act, like, normally as well. But he brought that energy that I want to see in a Lifetime movie, where he's being cringy on purpose, but he knows how to walk that tightrope.
And it looks like he did take acting seriously, because it says like when he graduated from Delaware, in the University of Delaware, his minor was in theater. And then I guess when he decided not to pursue football, he got a degree from the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in Los Angeles. So, and he's done like bit parts on shows and stuff like this. So yeah, it looks like he is trying to get more into acting. And like you said, you see at least some promise in his performance. So that's good.
I liked him. And then the other things that I wrote down about the movie, I was actually kind of impressed. The music wasn't just completely bland. It's funny to me they couldn't even just like ask Taylor permission to use her songs, whatever. But like the music that was performed in the movie, meant to be this pop star's music, not bad. I wouldn't say that it's as good as Taylor Swift, but it was not ear cancer, so I like that. Oh, and then just this whole thing, obviously it's just like capitalizing on the whole Swift-Kelsey relationship, but I did kind of think watching it, this could have been like a actually good romantic comedy if you didn't just try to base it on these specific people. The idea of like a sports star and a pop star like secretly dating, that could be a good idea for a movie, like if you're not just obviously trying to make it about Taylor Swift and Kelsey.
2 years ago, J-Lo did start a movie called Marry Me. It wasn't like a secret thing, but it was, it kind of is a little bit in that vein. She's like, except it was kind of more like average person and pop star. She was like this big pop star in the world of the movie. And she, through various, she gets slighted basically. And so she decides at a concert to just marry this random average Joe in the crowd who's Owen Wilson. So it's kind of a little, so I definitely could see, but I can see what you're saying though, is how something like this,
it basically sounds like they did, because that was the thing, that it didn't even have to be like a sports star. Just the idea of like someone secretly dating a pop star. That's a neat idea for a rom-com to me. So it sounds like Marry Me was close, but not exactly the same thing.
I should really watch that again.
Because that was also... Yeah, because that was also something I was thinking, is it's like, it doesn't even have to be like a football person. It could be anybody. Just like the idea of like someone who is dating the most famous woman in the world and they can't say anything about it. Like that's a cool idea for like a rom-com to me. So it's a shame they wasted it on this movie, but who knows? In the future, maybe someone will write something else. But yeah, that's what I got, and that was my thoughts on the movie.
So unfortunately, it sounds like you weren't tortured enough. I'm going to have to go back to Pig's Feet again. I'm just kidding.
Nope.
No, but you were good sport. Everybody give Whiskey a hand for sitting through Christmas in the Spotlight.
Woo! Woo! Yeah!
Applause.
Woo! Hopefully the editor adds in some canned applause. Okay. Yay!
You know what? I'm not going to see what they can do. But that being said, now that we're moving on to the main topic at hand, first off, Whiskey, what are you having to drink?
Well, so this being a month of March movie madness, I decided that I was going to do beer for both of these episodes, and I found a neat one with a mermaid on it. So it's from the Coronado Brewing Company, and the mermaid is like their corporate logo, I guess. But it's their big weekend double IPA that they say is juicy and tropical. So that's what I'm having for this one. What about you, T?
The only drink I saw them actually mention in the movie was Hennessy. So
oh boy,
I am just having a little bit. I don't really like Hennessy, but since I specifically saw somebody at the bar with a bottle of Hennessy, I actually think it was what's his name, Faison Love, who had it. So I'm like, okay, I'll have a little bit of Hennessy. So I'm just having just a little bit.
Sipping on the Henny.
I have a friend who's a big Hennessy drinker. But yeah, so that's what I was gonna do cider again too, but I'm like, that's boring. I need to switch it up. And then I remembered that scene. So today we have as our second sports offering The Replacements from 2000. Everybody get comfortable. This is a long cast list that I couldn't really leave anybody out of. So we have Keanu Reeves as Sean Falco, Gene Hackman.
Shane Falco.
What did I say? Sheen? Oh my god.
You said Sean.
Shane Falco.
Shane Falco.
We are off to a great start with this Hennessy. Okay. And then Gene Hackman, may he rest in peace, which we're also dedicating this episode to. In regards to his relatively recent passing, he is a legend in the acting world, and his talent will be forever missed.
Rest in peace, Lex Luthor.
Or Priest from Poseidon. that was my first like role that I really knew who Gene Hackman was from that. So he played Coach Jimmy McGinty, Brooke Langston as Annabelle, Orlando Jones as Clifford Franklin, Faison Love as Jared Jackson, Michael Taliaferro as Andre Jackson, Rice Ifans as Nigel Gruff, Ace Yonamein, I think is how it's pronounced, as Jumbo Oh my god, you know what, here, I'm so tired of doing this. I apologize, everybody. I'm just going to go ahead and just pull up the cast list on my phone. This will be so much easier than me trying to read. Well, because I start off writing well, and then everything just kind of falls apart when my hand gets tired. There we go. Okay, so... Okay. Keanu Reeves as Shane Falco, Gene Hackman as Coach Jimmy McGinty, Brooke Langston as Annabelle, Orlando Jones as Clifford Franklin, Faison Love as Jamal Jackson, Michael Taliaferro as Andre Jackson, Rice Ifans as Nigel Gruff, Jon Favreau as Daniel Bateman. Actually, I'm glad I went back to read this because I actually think I skipped over his name. Ace Yonamein as Jumbo Fumiko, Troy Winbush as Walter Cochran, David Denman as Brian Murphy, Michael Jace as Earl Wilkinson, and then we had Brett Cullen as Eddie Martell, and we had Jack Warden as Ed O'Neill, and then in playing themselves, John Madden and Pat Summerall portraying the announcers, aka themselves.
John Madden.
Unfortunately, they've also both passed away. So, but they are also legends in the sports commentating community.
Well, everybody knows John Madden, especially if you play the video games.
That's my thing.
John Madden has been... Mad TV has ruined John Madden for me because they had a recurring sketch with him. Like, they had a character, an actor who did a really good impression of him, and anytime he's talking, I just think of that Mad TV actor and all the sketches he did. Especially, like, they even do the thing where because John Madden was famous for, like, drawing stuff and, like, oh, you go back here and you do, like...
Which they actually poked fun at in this movie. I don't know if you saw that, say...
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. They had him do his famous thing.
It was so overly convoluted.
But yeah.
This is directed by Howard Deutsch, who directed Pretty in Pink and Some Kind of Wonderful. The screenplay was by Vince McEwen. The cinematography should ring a bell. It's by Tak Fujimoto, who...
Yeah, that does ring a bell.
The cinematography for The Silence of the Lambs. Philadelphia,
okay.
The Sixth Sense, Something Wild, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and Pretty in Pink, just to name a couple. But that was like mind-blowing.
Yeah, no, his name was ringing a bell once you listed him off. I'm like, oh, okay. I think Silence of the Lambs and The Sixth Sense, I think, were the ones that I knew him from. But, like, I've seen those other movies, but, like, speaking of knowing his cinematography, I think those are the two movies I'm aware of.
According to his Wikipedia page, he was a frequent collaborator with Jonathan Demme and M. Night Shyamalan, and obviously with John Hughes also. So, very well-connected person. I normally won't bring this up, but I will later. It was edited by Seth Flaum and Bud S. Smith. The music was by John Debney, who did a ton of stuff. I wrote down a couple. Inspector Gadget, The Princess Diaries 1 and 2, Elf, Giraffe Day. The budget of this film. So this is where it gets interesting. The budget of this film was $50 million. And guess how much it made at the box office?
Not much.
50.1 million.
Dang. So, okay, that I was wondering going into this film why, like, I've heard of the title before, but I'd never seen this film. It's not one that, like, comes up in, pop culture. The one thing that I'm happy is I've heard people refer to Keanu Reeves as Shane Falco before. Yeah. But I didn't know what they were talking about. I assumed maybe it was like from one of his movies where he played a cop or something. Maybe it was even like Speed, and I didn't remember that's his character's name. So it's very good to know now that they're like making a reference to this movie. But that solves the riddle. I was like, why have I never seen this movie? And there you go, because no one saw this movie.
I think in the US it only did about 5 million, and it made up the rest sort of overseas. Reception, not a great reception. 41% on Rotten Tomatoes, 30 on Metacritic. So what I'll say about that is, it is what it is. It's a fun movie. It's not meant to be anything deep. So with that aside, first off, I'm very, very proud to have picked a movie. It doesn't happen often, I think, that you have never seen. Because I feel like I've picked a movie and you'd be like, oh, I haven't seen that, and you watch it, and be like, oh no, I remember seeing this X years ago. So this movie, this is a classic from my childhood. This is one, I think, because it didn't do well at the box office and it wasn't super well received, that it was super cheap for syndication, because this was on TV all the time. This was on all the time. We watched this a lot.
I am surprised I never saw it on TV, at least, because I believe you. And I watched a lot of Comedy Central. I feel like would have aired this, so
yeah,
it's weird that I never somehow caught it. Maybe it's I'm not a sports guy, so maybe it was on and I was like, oh, it's a football movie, and changed the channel or something. But
you're like, I'm not that hetero. Change. I'm just kidding. I need to calm down this Hennessy. It's wild. So what's...
Oh my God! Say yes to the dresses on. Yas.
So this is a movie this one is just so much fun. I put this in the similar category that I put Dodgeball in last week. This is very much a comfort movie. It's good fun. You know, it's not gonna win any awards or, you know, like tell us something about ourselves introspectively. But I think if you go into this just looking to have a good fun, it's good. But that being said, first impressions from you. What did you think?
So I agree. I did not grow up with this one, but I found it very comforting. As far as like any criticisms, I think it's like cardinal sin is that it's just not very funny. That being said, though, I like the story a lot. I learned a lot too because the plot, like the whole idea. So if anyone hasn't seen this movie, which it sounds like statistically might be most of you,
statistically you haven't.
So there is a strike going on with this football league, and I say football league, I'll get into that later because there's another kind of interesting quirk about this movie that confused me, and then I did a little research because it was driving me crazy. So this football league is going on strike, and so they decide to basically have like scabs, like, you know, replacements come in to play while the players are on strike. And so it has this interesting kind of thing where it's like they don't matter. And that comes like at the very end of the movie, it's like the players are only striking for like some amount of time. And then it's like when they come back, it's like back into the regular season. I think it's literally for like the playoffs or like I would say the Super Bowl. But again, this is not the NFL. So whatever the final game is called in this fantasy universe. So that's kind of an interesting setup for a movie. And so you have all these kind of wacky characters, which gotta love that in sports comedy. You have the Welsh guy yes. who plays football, but like football kind of football. So they have him as a kicker. They've got some bodyguards as like you know, I guess guards or tackles or whatever, like offensive line essentially. You've got Keanu Reeves as you know, this quarterback who blew it when he was you know, his first game and basically like left and, you know, disgrace, and it's like a redemption thing with him. Right. And you've got some other like funny characters. Like one of them is like, you know, out of prison. You got one guy who's a receiver who can't catch, despite him being like very good. Like you can't catch him when he's running away from you. Yeah. But as far as catching the ball, it's like he can't, you know, do that. And Jon Favreau. Jon Favreau is like this angry, crazy guy who's also like a cop and like a military guy. Which that's like interesting too. I think a lot of people nowadays forget that Jon Favreau was like an actor in like the 90s and 2000s because he's famously directed Iron Man and his, you know, now he's more thought of as a director than an actor. Like he's done other stuff too. And he's a recurring character in the Marvel universe. So I guess people think of him as an actor playing Happy, you know, from the, you know, Marvel comics. But yeah, like, my initial thoughts, I dug it quite a bit. And it's not like unfunny. It's just like one of those movies where like the jokes just didn't land for me. So it never made me laugh exactly.
Like it wasn't your brand of humor. Yeah,
I'm sure. And there were like cute things. Like now I'm probably going to think of So You're Back from Outer Space, whatever that song is called. I Will Survive. There we go. I will think of that song. Like whenever I hear that song, I'll think of this movie. And again, like the characters were really good. But it's not bad. Like the fact it's got a 40% is kind of interesting because I don't think this is a bad movie. I think it's kind of a boilerplate like sports movie. Like it has all of those checks that other sports movies have, and like with Dodgeball, it was making fun of those kinds of movies and just the you know, the tropes and things that they have. This movie was just like following them to a T. So I don't know if maybe critics at the time were just getting sick of that, or something, but like I would not go as far as to say this is a bad movie. Like Rotten Tomatoes, you have a yes or a no, and it just gives it a percentage based on how many people gave it a yes.
Right.
So the fact that 60% of critics didn't like this movie enough to like give it a Rotten Tomato is weird to me, because like if I were giving this a review now, it would be a red, but in my paragraph or whatever, my actual review, it'd probably be full of a lot of nitpicks, but it's like, it's a fine movie. I don't know what you're talking about.
So according to Wikipedia, we have our favorite reviewer here.
Here we go.
He went on to say, slap happy entertainment painted in broad strokes, 2 coats thick, 2 out of 4 stars. I have no idea what 2 coats thick means. And then other reviews, according to said,
but that's the thing. He 2 out of 4, so that means it was good. Like that wasn't,
no, that's
technically
true.
that would translate to like a red tomato if that's up on Rotten Tomatoes. So that doesn't even make sense. He just said, he essentially said what I just said. Like, it's very boilerplate.
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily make it bad, in my opinion. It just means that, like, it's every other sports movie you've ever seen. Like, it's got, the love interest. It's got the bit where the star player leaves, which once again was made fun of in our last film, Dodgeball. It's got the bit where, it seems like the evil team's about to win at the end, but then is like, there's a technicality and like, it's again, like it's the thing that Dodgeball was making fun of.
Right.
But it's doing it, and it's doing it without being ironic. And that's its biggest sin, essentially. And that's what it sounds like Ebert was saying, which again, I agree with. I just don't think it makes it a bad movie.
And then there's somebody else said, and I actually disagree with this review. According to Wikipedia, they said the consensus on Rotten Tomatoes is the cliched characters and obvious outcome make all the fun and excitement amount to nothing. And while I will agree with cliched characters, yes, cool, they're cliche, that's fine. I don't agree with this statement that because of their outcome that it amounts to nothing. Because I kind of feel like the way this movie is structured, in the midst of this movie, you forget that until it's really kind of brought up at the end, that post the winning game, there's nothing for them. They're literally doing this for no one. And I kind of feel like that makes them coming together and actually trying more meaningful, because it's not even like really for, at the end he says, the glory will live forever. Yes and no, because if you keep in mind, in the grand scheme of who they are essentially scabs, which is not favorably looked upon in history. So they're really not doing this for anybody else. They're, so I don't agree with that. The fact that, they're obviously going to win at the end is for nothing. I do kind of feel like all the fun and excitement they talk about makes the journey. I feel like that person's forgetting the journey and they're just focusing on the destination. I don't know. What do you think? I
think what gave me the warm and fuzzies at the end of the movie is just they proved that they could do it. And Shane Falco is our protagonist, and his whole story is based on the fact that he blew it the first time he was a quarterback. So, yeah, he's not going to get an NFL career. He's not going to get to play in the league. He's not even going to get the millions of dollars that the person he's replacing is going to get. And he doesn't get to play in the playoffs. But he gets to prove that he can. Or like that he has the potential. He could have done it if he wanted to. You know what I mean? Like there's a good reason why he's like the protagonist of the movie, because they all have, things from their past. Like there's a whole thing. One of them's a criminal, one of them's a cop. So putting aside their differences, and they all have their own little things, but like Shane's sort of the face of the movie, and I feel like that is the whole point, is like these nobodies, these people who work Some of them are going back to jail, you know, like,
Yeah.
and they got to be on TV. For a while, the fans were rooting for them instead of the real players. And no one will be able to take that away from them. Like, again, this is some fantasy league that doesn't exist, but if this were the NFL, those games would still be archived and part of sports history. You know, like the Sentinels made it to the Uber Bowl because of Shane Falco. You know, like they got to play in the final game because of this team that was patched together with all these randos. So I think, yeah, I agree with you, and I guess that's what they're getting at. Whoever wrote that review, but like, it's not for nothing. I mean, that was something I thought was interesting because this is such like a weird situation to be in as a sports team. So like that was a thing I thought was really interesting, was that the results of these players are still going to count in the regular season. So if they had lost all of their games, the team would have been out. But just because of them actually succeeding, now burping from the beer. Oh now the regular players get to play in like the Super Bowl or whatever it's called. And they wouldn't be able to do that if it hadn't been for this replacement team.
That's true. And, you know, I kind of almost think like, I don't know, there's something like you talk about, this is just such a weird situation for a team to be in. And it's almost like if you hadn't had the strike, would you have got here? Like,
well, I think this is a good time. I've been dancing around this because I think it's worth talking about. There's one thing that confused the hell out of me while I was watching this, because it's like, it's the DC team, like, or maybe it's the Washington. It's got to be Washington, like Seattle, right?
No, it's Washington, D.C.
Okay, I was confused because there was a waterfront. But so it's the Washington Sentinels, and watching, I was like, that's not what they are. What is, and then it's like, oh, they're playing Detroit, and then it's like their colors are wrong and all this other. So eventually I went to the internet. I was like, what is going on with this movie? Like, what's with all these teams? And so I guess it's because of the NFL. Like the NFL, they are greedy. They're the sort of people that'll sue you if you put any clips from like the big. You're not even allowed to call it the Super Bowl. I don't know if we're gonna get dinged for it. You know, we're small fry, but who knows? You have to call it the big game, or else they'll like, you know, content strike your video or your podcast or whatever. So I don't know if that's why, but basically, like, this movie takes place in a fictional universe. This is not the NFL. This is some other football league. And all of the teams are different uniforms, different colors, different mascot names.
Right.
So instead it's the Washington Sentinels. And then they never really say the other teams, but you can kind of infer, like, I think Detroit were Knights. But that's kind of an interesting thing. I'm surprised you didn't bring up the costume designer, T, because the costume designer had the fun and exciting, you know, prospect of, okay, there are these new fictional teams for these cities. How am I going to make their uniforms look? So right. That was kind of a neat thing with this. I don't think they looked very good.
No. The uniforms in this movie, and this is how you can kind of always tell, like, a good, it sounds bad, but like a good, like, not like a, I guess a well, this sounds bad too. Basically, a sports movie with a lot of budget versus not a lot of budget, because the caliber of their uniforms always shows. Like, it just looks, I don't know, something about it looks so like almost like Halloween store. Like, what's the word I'm looking for? What's that place called? It pops up all the time.
Oh, Spirit Halloween.
Spirit Halloween. It's given Spirit Halloween costume vibes. And I really think they had to do a lot with the budget. And I think that also had to do a lot with the camera angles that were used, which is not necessarily a new trick. But I think it's really obvious in this film that when they're on the field, they make a very concerted effort to not show the stands. And it's because there's no one there, obviously, because this isn't a real game.
Yeah.
But no, I totally agree. The colors they picked were bad. The quality of them was bad. But you brought up the NFL, so I'm going to bring up something. This is actually based on a true story.
Okay, you did know that. I learned that by looking up the whole uniforms thing, and because I was like, well, why is this based on, like, why does this take place in a fictional thing? So yeah, there was actually a strike in 1987.
Yes.
So I'll let you get into that.
So yeah, so in 1987 there was a play. There was a player lockout basically because there was a strike, and several of the teams did come up with replacement teams. They did say though that this movie is specifically based on the Washington Redskins, which is how I know it's DC and not Seattle, because Seattle's the Seahawks. So they had a replacement team come in, and let's see, according to, do they give me credit? They do not give credit, but according to the trivia on IMDb, they had they had the replacements play 3 games, and they won all 3 of their games. Then the quote real team came back, played game 7 through the Super Bowl, and won the Super Bowl. They said what was kind of messed up about this though is that if the replacement team hadn't come in, they may or may not have even made it to the playoffs. And the team, the Redskins, now referred to as the Commanders, refused to acknowledge that for the longest time. But they did say that in March 2018, 30 years later, like over 30 years, I think, or maybe it is 30 years. I think it's over 30 years. Man, it's 30 years. Okay. That's beside the point. That they did officially say they were going to recognize them, and they, according, I'm going to fact check this, but I believe that they said that they were also going to give them Super Bowl rings, the 30 people who played, because they wouldn't have gotten, and I agree with this, I don't think the team would have gotten there if somebody hadn't played for those 3 games,
Absolutely. Well, I mean, that's like the point I was making about the movie too. I didn't know. I'm glad I asked you to to fill me in, because all I knew was that this was based on a real player lockout in 1987. So that is actually crazy that they ended up winning the Super Bowl. Frankly, now I'm gonna go as far as to say this is a good movie. It might not be very funny, but like that, I feel like that's the point the movie is kind of trying to make. Is it's like, are these guys really not real players? I mean, they're the ones that made it to the playoffs. So I'm glad that the real Washington Commanders are actually going to retroactively recognize these players, because that's crazy. I didn't. There you go. I'm not a sports person. My dad likes to say he's a sports nostalgist, and he has all these like historical tidbits and what. No, he probably knows about everything you just said, and he'd probably be like, "Oh, that was a crazy year," and blah blah. Who? Yeah, but
so, I did, according to the official Washington Commanders website, back on June 12th, 2018, replacement players received their Super Bowl rings.
Good.
The following players were in attendance during the ceremony. Let's see. Let's just go ahead and read them out for posterity's sake.
Yay.
Obed Ariri, and I do apologize if any of you are listening that I can't pronounce names to save my life. Kieran Bigby, Derek Bunch, Mark Carlson, Joe Coffer, John Cohn, Eric Coyle, Alec Gibson, Alan Harvin, Charles Jackson, Ted Karras, John Kimmel, Skip Lane, Phil Petty, Tony Robinson, Anthony Sagnella, Tony Settles, Willard Sissom, Jack Stanley, Henry Watcher, Eric Wilson, Wayne Wilson, David Wyndham, Mike Wooten, Jack Whale, and Craig McEwen. It says that he was honored in attendance after receiving a Super Bowl ring in 1987. I don't know what the deal with Craig McEwen is. But yeah, so, okay, maybe this is not a fair comparison, but this is almost sort of like a Hidden Figures type movie. I mean, It's not as serious, but still, it's people who came in and were given no respect, and they brought their team to the point to where they could potentially make a run for the Super Bowl. and then were pretty much forgotten. So
I'm just going to point out that I heard Wade Wilson somewhere in that. So we've got confirmation, everybody, that Deadpool at one point played for the Washington Redskins.
Oh my God!
No,
wait.
So
No. It was Wayne Wilson.
Oh, Wayne Wilson. Never mind. False alarm, everybody. Sure no. Another thing. So like you're right. Scabs do not historically get. They're not thought of as like heroes or anything like that. This movie's interesting though because it does kind of bring up the obvious point that and here's the thing too. Like it's weird nowadays because I'm pretty sure in 2000 we were not talking about football players and concussions in the same way that we are now because back then, this is just something to be said about athletes in general. It is kind of funny how much they make for playing a game, essentially.
Right.
But there are like ways in which athletes are not, fairly compensated. The most obvious is NCAA players. Like now they are actually able to make money off of like likenesses in video games and stuff.
Yeah.
But forever, that was just like something that like the league was able to like capitalize off of it, but these college students weren't able to use it to pay off their student debt or anything like that.
Right.
And same thing with like NFL players. Then, the idea of like a millionaire wanting an extra $1 million. They even say that in the movie. Laughable. But what's kind of crazy now is like them striking for more money wouldn't be that crazy because they are ruining their bodies. Yeah. And like this it's not just concussions. Why am I blanking on the actual technical
their bodies
name
go through like actual horrendous things.
Well, so like the repeated concussions, I'm blanking on the name of the actual ailment, but like it's
I know what you're talking about.
The inflammation of the brain. It's crazy. Like, frankly, Will Smith, as funny as he is, he starred in the movie Concussion, before he was slapping people and getting banned from the Oscars. He almost won an Academy Award for his role in that, in which this doctor, raised concerns.
It's called CTE, chronic traumatic
encephalopathy. There you go. It's crazy, man. It's scary, the things you go through. There's a lot of, in true crime, I'm sure T is aware of a lot of former athletes who went insane because of CTE.
Killed people or their families or themselves.
Killed their families or themselves. And the scariest thing about CTE is the only way they can confirm that you have it is by cutting open and looking at your brain. So you won't even be diagnosed with it.
It's like rabies. You can't check if you have it until you're dead.
Exactly.
Or it's too late.
It's like this scary thing that happens if you get hit in the head repeatedly. And so now, the conversation would be very different and these replacements wouldn't be looking good. It's such a fascinating movie. Again, like I'm happy that you picked this because it was a blind spot for me. I haven't seen this. It sounds like it kind of was a blind spot for most people. And I'm wondering what people would think of it now because it is this complicated sort of issue now with CTE and CTE, the historical.
And also, I do think people would take issue with the portrayal of, maybe necessarily, especially with as unionized as a lot of trades are, specifically with the idea of a scab being heroic, but also with the portrayal, and I'm okay with this portrayal, and I'll tell you why later, with the portrayal of the the quote real players, the people who are holding the picket line. Now, I personally feel like their portrayal has to do with how they're not necessarily the actual players. I'm trying to say it's more of how, when they came back, they pretended like that these people did no work. And so I think that's sort of the attitude that they were trying to put into them. Not necessarily that people who are striking are obnoxious and greedy, but, it's a personification of how how those people did end up treating the people that got them to where they were.
It's an interesting thing too. Like I like unions. I think that they are very useful, especially in trades that don't have any leverage when it comes to, you know, making things better for their themselves, being able to get like fair wages and stuff like that. Again, this particular career is an interesting one because if it wasn't for things like CTE, I would fully be on the side of like, you know, these scabs. And the historical, again, I did not know about the actual Washington team making it and winning the Super Bowl. That is super crazy. Again, what that's like a genuinely crazy, awesome sports story. And again, it's, if anything, I feel like this movie just should have been a straight. It probably, you couldn't do it as a comedy. It would have to be a drama. But I feel like this movie would have been so much better if it had just been a straight up retelling of what happened in 1987 with the Washington team, because that's so much more interesting than like this. Like, and this is me saying like this is still a good movie, but I feel like that story is so crazy that actually happened and led to a Super Bowl win. That's like,
I kind of wonder if the story of the replacements, despite it being a very interesting story, how well it would have how well it would have done in, in development, if it would, if in how they would have tried to do it, as, because the movie can be construed, it's not, but it can be construed as an anti-union movie, and I feel like if they took it more seriously, they were afraid it wouldn't get made. I feel like maybe the people who wrote this, let me see, and who screenplay was by Vince McEwen. I kind of wonder if he was more concerned with getting maybe the story of this out there.
That's probably, here's the thing,
they could do it as a comedy.
So yeah, obviously there's that angle to it. It's interesting because also the thing you got to think about is the players on the real Washington team were only just honored with Super Bowl rings in, you said, 2018.
Yeah.
So when this movie came out, that was still like a thing that they were not getting recognized for. So that's like that could have been a whole other angle with the movie too, which again could have maybe made some people angry. I don't know who, I understand unions and all that, but you're also kind of these players that were replacing the real players were also getting hit in the head. You know what I mean? It gets muddy. I feel like anyone who has like an absolutionist stance on either side of this would just look foolish. It's kind of a very complicated issue. Because of how much the players are getting paid and how much, whatever physical things that they're going through, these replacement players are also going through. So again, like this movie is fascinating. And it's almost a shame that it bombed, but it probably bombed because of how boilerplate it was, to be honest.
According to the IMDb Wikipedia page, they did say, though, that they did have, not the IMDb Wikipedia page, excuse me, the IMDb trivia page, they did at one point have plans to do a sequel. I don't know how they would have done a sequel. So I guess it did well. I mean, like, it did okay for them, I guess is what I'm trying to say. If not, phenomenal. But it says plans did fall through. So that's definitely a choice. I don't think it could have a sequel though.
No, and also like with all of the things we've been talking about and the things I've learned, I think it's also very clear why they had to come up with a fictional league and why the NFL did not want anything to do with this movie, because I don't think they wanted to look bad. I don't think they wanted the story out there for anyone who didn't know about it, which is crazy also because it wasn't that long ago. It was 13 years before, so sports fans at the time probably definitely remembered the lockout of 87.
Actually, yeah. I mean, I'm thinking about it from, like, my perspective, but You're probably right. It's like that was
I think
only
the NFL
13
just wanted
years ago.
Yeah, no one to think about this. Like, okay, you can tell the story of that, but we're not gonna, you put our name on it, we're gonna sue you. Can't be in the NFL. So it's all making sense now because there's been another big sports drama, not comedy, but there's no, not Miracle. Miracle's the hockey one. I think
Miracle
it's Invincible. It's yeah, I think it's Invincible is the one about the Eagles quarterback who was like a bartender.
Okay.
Because that's a true story, and they still used the Eagles, and the NFL and all of that. So obviously, and there's other examples of that too. Like the NFL is not opposed to having their likeness be in movies. So that was kind of the thing that was weirding me out. I was like, why this movie? Why do they not want it to be the actual Washington team and everything? So there you go. I think that's the reason why. Right. The fact that this is based on a specifically true story and the players had not been fairly compensated. I think that's the big thing they didn't want getting out there.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I don't know if you remember this, but when the original Independence Day movie came out, I remember them saying that they had some support, like the U.S. military was going to provide some stuff for them, like some props and things like this. And then when they had mention of Area 51, they were like, no, we don't want to be involved now. Like, I'm not kidding. This is an actual thing that happened when they were filming the Independence Day. But yeah, like you're right. It's probably the exact same sort of situation. We don't want to put that out there. Even though, let's be real, Area 51 is like the worst kept secret ever. So that being said,
it wasn't even a secret. Like everyone, so it was known that it was a thing. It was just the whole alien thing. Like I remember, I want to say it was like 2010, back when Reddit wasn't as annoying as it is now. You'd actually get some really cool AMAs. And I remember back then there was a guy, he's like, I used to work at Area 51, ask me anything. And I believe that it was a real person because he was like, yeah, we worked on secret stuff, but it was like new types of planes and things like that. Like we didn't have any aliens, but we did have like stuff that was like 10 years away from being put out to the public.
That's if you believe the people who are leaving the AMAs. Like, how can we prove that? Okay, you know what? I'm sorry. I've been watching a lot of X-Files lately, and
I'm not saying there aren't aliens. I'm saying that if there are aliens, they wouldn't be at Area 51 because everyone knows about Area 51. They would be in a secret place that no one knows about. You know what I mean?
Like the Pine Bluff.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, exactly. No one talks about the Pine Bluff. Are you even a believer if you don't know about the Pine Bluff? But no, exactly. Like that's my point, though. You know what I mean? Like everyone knew about Area 51. It was not a secret that there was an Area 51. As we saw in 2019, when everyone stormed it, there were straight up signs saying, "Hey, this is Area 51. Do not go past this point."
But my favorite part, though, is they actually let people get up close to the gate. They just couldn't go past it. That was the best part because they used to just.
I mean, that's how it's always been. Again,
well,
like
they
Area
used to
51, everyone
shoot you if you drove on this road.
Well, like if you pass the gate, yeah, that's how it is on any military base. That's why there's like no, I
meant like the road going to Area 51. They'd be like, you can't be on this road. Like, turn around, leave.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, like. There were signs saying this is Area 51. It's always been like that. The conspiracy or, belief that there are aliens in Area 51, who knows if it's true. But my point is that the government was not secretive about the fact that there was a secret place called Area 51. I say secret. You know what I mean. Like
right.
that this is a place you're not allowed to go. It's in the middle of the desert. That was not like a hidden thing. What were we talking about? We're talking
I don't know,
about
but
football.
I just found out that you ruin conspiracy theories. No, we were basically talking about how, as a movie, they didn't want... If they were to partner with on this movie, it would almost be like an acknowledgement. I mean, besides the fact that they probably want people to pay fees and stuff like this. We got some trivia here, some more trivia here. This is one of my favorite resources. Jack Warden, who did play the owner of the Centennials, this was his final film. He did pass away after the filming of this. This would probably be one your dad would know the answer to this. So they keep mentioning his Sugar Bowl thing that he screwed up in 1996. Yep. Do you know why they specifically picked 1996?
I am guessing that first off, the Sugar Bowl, that's a real thing, right?
Yeah, the Sugar Bowl's a real thing.
Okay.
I forgot you're not from the South.
No, well, like, that's the thing. There's like, it's the same thing. There's the one for college in Pasadena.
The Rose Bowl?
Thank you. Yeah, the Rose Bowl is another one.
Why do I know more?
Because, I don't know, because you're from Texas where football is a religion. Well, I'm guessing like an actual game happened in 1996 that was pretty embarrassing for somebody. But was it the Rose Bowl instead of the Sugar Bowl, or was there actually a Sugar Bowl in 1996 that was embarrassing for somebody?
So the Sugar Bowl did exist, but there was no game in 1996 for some reason. Okay. For whatever reason, there was no Sugar Bowl, and I'm trying to figure out why that is, but I can't find an actual answer as to why there was some. Your dad would probably know exactly why there was not a Sugar Bowl in 1996. I have no idea.
Okay, so that's the trivia. That's the trivia, though, is that there just wasn't a Sugar Bowl in 96.
Exactly.
Okay.
They did film this, all of basically the stadium scenes. I don't know if you know, it's this, even though they're traveling, it's the same stadium every time. This was all filmed. It was, I believe, at the time, it was called Cynet Stadium, which is a real stadium, and it is the home of the Baltimore Ravens. Still the home of the Baltimore Ravens. It's called something else now, but they basically filmed this in Baltimore, I'm assuming during the off season. Supposedly that Keanu Reeves did get a tryout with the Ravens during filming, you know, probably as a fun sort of baby publicity thing, but he got to do a tryout with them, so that was sort of fun. Although I cannot see Keanu Reeves as a football player. He's like too skinny. Like, they said that he gained like 23 pounds, and I'm like, this dude is still like a steak for this movie. I don't know.
I was kind of interested when I saw that he was a star. I was like, I don't see him as a football player, so this will be interesting to watch. I think he did it okay. Also, like, if you're going to cast him as a football player, the QB makes the most amount of sense because quarterbacks tend to be the small guy on the team. Because all they got to do is throw the ball, right? Like, obviously, right. You know, they might get sacked or whatever. But speaking of which, the guy on my high school team, the one time I played, he was like significantly smaller than the rest of us. So that if you're gonna cast him as a football player, making him the quarterback it makes sense. It's not that crazy of an idea.
Let's circle back though to one of the players. So according to my trivia book, the character of Eric Wilson, who was played by Tony Jace, that was the one that was out on prison. So according to this, he is based on the actual player Tony Robinson, who we did here get a Super Bowl ring. He was a replacement quarterback for the Redskins in a game against the Dallas Cowboys during the strike. And it says he was an inmate on work release, and he was allowed to play that one game and led the Redskins to a 13-17 victory on Monday Night Football. They said it was one of the biggest upsets of the 1987 season, and he did eventually get released from prison in 2012.
Well, that's awesome.
That's wild. That is absolutely wild.
That is wild.
Well, and then furthermore, that character was played by Tony, right? Michael... Wait, hang on. I lost it. There it is. It was played by Michael Jace. Michael Jace then went on to, I think it was in 2016, I think he murdered his wife and went to prison.
Woo!
My goodness. In the Hyde Park. Actually, yeah, I think it is, because I remember watching this episode of People Magazine Investigates. Yeah, so I just didn't put it together until I was doing this research for this movie. But Just overall, I just think that this is like you talked about it. It's almost like this movie has more depth than I think people give it. Like when you look
I
into the
do.
history of this, and like you said, it kind of went from for you, that kind of brought it from an okay movie to okay, maybe this is a good movie.
Yeah, it almost kind of had lost potential. Like I said, it makes sense why they wouldn't be able to do an actual like verbatim retelling of the 87 lockout and their road to the Super Bowl and all that. But it would they could do it now, especially now that the players have been recognized. It could be a good warm and fuzzy movie. I say, maybe there should be maybe there should be a remake of The Replacements, but it be
a little more serious, a little more factual,
a little more exactly. Well, because that's the thing, like that was one of the characters that was more out there that you would think, oh, that's crazy, that would never happen in real life. But the fact that it did, like, because that was the other thing too, that where it wasn't like funny to me, but I do think that they came up with some funny characters for the movie, like the Welsh guy who played soccer and could kick really well. Like all of those characters were really well, maybe not well written. They were funny kind of a ensemble. What it reminded me of was another movie we could have picked for this pairing was the Major League series.
Yeah.
And that was another, which once again, the Major League Baseball allowed the Cleveland Indians to be the team in that movie. So apparently Major League Baseball didn't care that
they're a little friendlier. Well, I mean,
again, it's not based on a true story, so, and it's also not, about, so maybe that has something to do with it. But that's another movie where all of the baseball players are like wacky. In fact, you have Charlie Sheen is a out of prison in that movie, and you've got like a voodoo guy who can hit the ball really well.
Oh, I remember him.
Which it's the Allstate guy, by the way. That was one of his earlier roles. Dennis Haysbert. Anyway, but like that's another thing that I thought was well done with this movie was like the wacky characters were kind of well written. But there you go again, like that's one of the characters where like that's too ridiculous. That would never happen in real life. But it did.
It did.
It not clearly, only that,
right? Like we just read about it. It actually happened. It's like because like the other pick I was gonna pick that I thought about picking for this movie, for this picking was Fever Pitch.
Yep.
that would have been the Red Sox though. Again, that MLB just seems to be a little thing. And then one other thing I want to touch on with this movie is, and we kind of talked about this with Dodgeball, and I think this has to do just a lot of just this period of comedies. Some of the comedy, just has not aged well.
Yes.
But I think like we talked about specifically with Dodgeball, it was kind of like this little, just like niche period where this comedy was peak. This is what everybody loved. This is everything. And you kind of just have to accept that. Otherwise you end up blocking out like a whole chunk of the movie because, and I will say though that there are times when the comedy, not in this movie, but like in this period where the comedy could have gotten mean-spirited. But I don't think in either case in Dodgeball or in this movie it was mean-spirited. Maybe a little misguided in the grand scheme of things. But
I'm curious if you have any examples of anything that, because I'm sure if I thought hard about it, I could think of something, but I feel like Dodgeball was the raunchier of the two.
Oh yeah, it was definitely raunchier, but I'm talking about specific jokes in this movie. Like there's one that John Madden makes about when, and this isn't really a bad one, but when a fat guy scores, you get to see a fat guy spike and then a fat guy do a fat guy dance.
That's okay. There you go. Yeah.
Something like that. The other
exactly. No, and that's what I was, because I'm sure that there are jokes like that. But I feel like Dodgeball, you had some slurs thrown in there. You had a little bit more raunchy language. I don't know. This one felt a little more like,
I think it depends on who was talking specifically. When Faison Love's character and Ace's character were kind of butting heads towards the beginning. There was some racial slurs thrown in there, back and
Okay.
forth. There were.
Okay. See, you've seen this movie more. Like when I was watching it, I was honestly I was kind of surprised that it wasn't a little more raunchy, considering it was 2000. It was like right, I later 2005 was Dodgeball. Like the
Yeah.
2000s were like the raunchy period, but I don't know, the 90s were pretty bad too. I definitely do think that the fat guy dance and all that you were talking about certainly would ruffle some feathers today. I don't know though. Like this one seems a little more tame. And frankly, again, I feel like the messaging is fine.
But I will say, just much like what we said with Dodgeball, when you come full circle with everything, it just still felt very wholesome.
Yes,
Especially
this one more
when
so. Like
learn the backstory.
yeah, well, and again, like this one to me felt more so wholesome than like it felt very comfy. Again, I didn't grow up watching this movie, but it felt very like comforting. I
Yeah.
don't know, like it's
definitely
just like a nice little
vegging out
movie.
on the couch movie.
Yes, yes, it is.
That being said, what sort of rating would you give this?
I think, as I said, I think it's a good movie. I think that it needed a higher budget or it needed some support from the NFL because it really suffers from cheapness. But I think the writing is pretty good just because I don't think it's funny. I don't think it's like not a funny movie. I just think that's just a me thing.
Yeah.
And I think that the messaging is great in this. I think, honestly, it's got an even better kind of moral sense than Dodgeball. Like, Dodgeball's just trying to be funny. Like, this, I feel like, especially with Gene Hackman kind of having that little monologue at the end after they win the game and stuff, I do think that it is kind of trying to have some sort of like meaningful impact, and I don't think that it falls short in that respect. But you mentioned the cinematography not showing the stands.
Yes, okay.
That not only is that bad, but that's also like a lost opportunity because in other sports comedies, part of the fun is having like crowd reactions,
right? Which they did to an extent, but it's
somewhat,
yeah. But actually,
and it was usually. Yeah,
you saying cinematography really quick. Hang on, I just thought of something that I wanted to talk about, and this has to do with my biggest drawback of the movie, and I think this has to do with the fact that the 9 million times I've seen this, it has mostly been on TV. So there's lots of they edit for time and content and whatever. But I think one of the things that David, I did not realize how bad the editing is in some of these sequences. It is, I will say, it's borderline atrocious. And when I say editing, I mean like the transition from scene to scene. Like there would be, I don't know if you got this feeling too, but there was some where I was just like, this sounds really mean. I was almost like, is this amateur hour? Like, come on, guys, we know how to edit something. Like, I don't know. Like, that's the only reason why I specifically mentioned the edit. I don't usually talk about editing. And I don't know what else that they have done because on Wikipedia their names weren't in blue, but there were some that was not meant to be shady, but I realize how shady that sounds now.
No, I'm not saying that. Honestly, no. I was going ooh because that is a bad sign. That kind of suggests maybe they didn't work on anything before or after, which is it's not good.
Like there's lots of music in this movie, lots of top hits in this film.
Yeah.
And one of the things that bugged me is they would transition from scene to scene, but they would never properly merge the music. So like they would literally go from like, let's say, like the one that's sticking in my head right now is when Keanu Reeves and Annabelle they're having the romantic moment at the bar, and then they transition to the game and they're still playing that song Every Breath You Take, which is fine, but then they just kind of like abruptly just stop, and it's like they were counting on the crowd noise almost covering it up, but it is so obvious that it's like you carried that song on for too long, you know? And I'm just like, that happened a lot in this movie, and I just felt like that's to me, that was like the one thing that really, really bugged me. Is I'm like, you don't have to be, like I said, a epic Oscar worthy film to be appreciated by us, but I was just like, come on, we can at least edit better. I don't know if you noticed it at all.
I didn't, but I probably would on a subsequent watch. Because that's another, like I was just talking about how you didn't see the crowd. That's something I didn't think about until you brought it up. And once you did, I was like, there you go. That's why the football scene seemed off.
Right.
There's like, I don't know, it's a weird, cheap kind of movie that obviously a lot of these people have worked on better things, so it makes you wonder, like, what were they just phoning it in for this one? What's the deal?
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's fine. I think your little rant there settled my mind as far as like a rating number goes, because I was leaning potentially towards giving it a 2.5. But I think, honestly, as much as we give Mr. Ebert some shit every now and again, I think his rating was kind of on the money. I'm going to give it a 2 out of 4 as well. It's not a bad movie. And I frankly think that you could maybe even do like a remake and make it about the real team.
Yeah.
Maybe even get the NFL on board and maybe make it not a comedy. Oh, I remembered something I wanted to talk about. Just a little comment. So, depending, I feel like our listeners tend to be kind of our age or older. So now the Washington team is the Commanders, but for a bit, when they were going to not call it the Redskins anymore because, of being a really stupid, insensitive name for the team to begin with, there was kind of the whole, what are we going to call the team? Why didn't you call it the Sentinels?
That would have been a cool name, right?
It would have been cool. And clearly, again, I've heard people refer to Keanu Reeves as Shane Falco. So there are fans of this movie.
Yeah.
Who knows if any of them live in Washington, but it's like, that would have been kind of a funny little nod to this obscure little movie that didn't do very well. And it would have kind of shut everyone up. It's like, oh, that's funny. It's the Washington Sentinels now. And maybe they could have even done like because the uniforms were red, but they were also like red, white, and blue. So
right.
It kind of made sense for it to be the Washington team because it's the American colors. You could have gone with that. I don't know, because they did keep the old colors, because when it was the Redskins, it was red and yellow, and now that they're the Commanders, it's also still, which that doesn't make sense, because wouldn't you want it to be Army colors? I don't know. That was something, I'm glad I remembered that, because I was like, there was something I wanted to bring up. But yeah, frankly, I think it would have been kind of funny if Washington had changed it to the Washington Sentinels as like a little nod to this movie, because it makes sense. Sentinels, if I know the definition correctly, it's like a guard. So you could be, it's like, oh, it's the guard of the country, the capital, it could make sense. But yeah, so my rating's a 2 out of 4. What about you, T?
I am going to give it, I think a 2 out of 4 is appropriate. Just because I do think there's enough sort of just minute issues that keep it from being a 2.5. Like I said, this is not like necessarily a fabulous movie, but it's a fun one and it's an enjoyable one. But like I talked about with my ratings and maybe some of the cinematography choices that were made and the budget, I feel like it kind of kept it from being a great film and maybe just a good one. So I am going to give it 2. I thought about giving 2.5, but after thinking it over, I was going to give it 2. I also want to say my favorite characters in the movie are obviously the exotic dancers. They are like the best. I think we need to have more exotic dancers in the NFL.
That was funny. That was funny. Having the cheer team be made up of exotic dancers as you are referring to them.
Exotic. Yeah, they worked at
strippers.
They work at the Pussycat over by the airport.
Oh boy.
I love it. Oh, you were in Cats. Oh no. No, we worked at the Gentleman's Club.
Oh my gosh, you were in Cats.
I know, that's great. My favorite line in this movie, which I wish I had a reason to use more, is if I give you $1, you can keep all the change because all I really need is a quarterback. I love that line because it's so tacky. But anyway, that being said, the end of March Madness.
What did you guys think? Do you think this is an underappreciated classic? What do you think we're going to talk about next month?
Maybe I'm crazy, but I put this in. To me, maybe this is just my own worldview. I thought this. I personally, before I started doing research, that this was like a cult classic, but I didn't read anything that said that. So that's just
it. Might be. Again, people refer to Keanu Reeves as Shane Falco sometimes, so it might be a cult classic. But let us know what you think in the comments if you're listening to this on YouTube Music. Also, feel free to like and subscribe if you're on that platform. If you're on any other platform and you liked what you heard, made it this far, check out our backlog of episodes. We've been doing this for quite a while at this point, and we've talked about a lot of movies. But until next time, I've been Whiskey.
I've been Sweet Tea.
Keeping it Kino.
And suck it, Scorsese.
See you next time, guys. We're barreling into April.
Ooh. Reference? Reference anybody?
No. You could say that the next review is going to be more fun than a barrel of giant monkeys. Wink,
yes. Wink. I agree. I think it will.
But see you next time, guys.
Bye, y'all. Reels on the Rocks is a production of La Prince Laboratories. It is edited and produced by Alejandro Castillo and programmed by Jamie King. Original music is provided by Pat Mars and original artwork by Asa Esparza.